In this video, you will learn about the concepts and considerations in structural design of a beam, which include spans, supports, and loading. A beam is a structural element that primarily resists loads applied laterally to its axis. Its mode of deflection is primarily by bending. In a framed structured building, it is used to transfer loads from slabs to columns. A span is the distance between two intermediate supports in a beam. When a beam is having multiple supports, the number of spans is the number of lengths between two pairs of intermediate supports. Thus, we can have a single span beam, or a multi-span beam as shown. For any point, there are 6 possible movements that can occur. These are called the 6 degrees of freedom, 3 for translational movement in the x, y, and z axes, and another 3 for rotational movement in the 3 axes. These degrees of freedom helps us understand whether or not these movements are free to move, or are restrained. The joint supports in a structural member are classified into 4 types, depending on these degrees of freedom. Each of these support types differ in the restraints to translational or rotational movement in the 3 coordinate axes. The fixed support provides restraints in all 6 degrees of freedom, that is translation in the 3 axes, and rotation in the 3 axes. The pin support restrains all 3 translation degrees of freedom, and unrestrains all 3 rotational degrees of freedom. The roller support restrains only the translation in the z direction. All the other degrees of freedom are unrestrained. The no support, or the free support, means there is no restraint in any degree of freedom. The beams are of different types, depending on the type of support, and their positioning. These are the common types of beams. A cantilever beam is a projecting beam, fixed at only one end, and free at the other end. A simply supported beam is supported on one of the ends, with a pinned support, and the other end, with a roller support. A beam fixed on both ends, and restrained from both rotation and translation at the ends, is said to have fixed ends. The beam can be fixed at one end, acting as a cantilever, and simply supported at the other end. An overhanging beam is a simple beam, extending beyond its support on one end. If the beam is extending beyond its supports, in both ends, then it is a double overhanging beam. A beam extending over more than 2 supports is a continuous beam. Let us now take a look at the different types of loading and beams. A point load is a load which acts over a very small distance. Because of concentration over a small distance, this load may be considered as acting on a point. Distributed load is that which acts over a considerable length, or you can say, over a length, which is measurable. Distributed load is measured as per unit length. This distributed load is further divided into uniformly distributed load and uniformly varying load. Uniformly distributed load is that whose magnitude remains uniform throughout the length. Uniformly varying load is that load whose magnitude varies along the loading length with a constant rate. All the load cases shown here are in context with this course. There exist more cases in real life, but for the purpose of the course, we are exposing you to a few simpler cases. In the next video, you will learn to draw a concrete beam and apply loads on it using the SAP 2000 software. Thanks for watching.